OTAs are underway for the Buffalo Bills, so we're breaking down what we've learned so far today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of Go Bills and Buffalo's Run, also the co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Well, folks, welcome in. The OTAs are underway for the Buffalo Bills. OTA stands for Organized Team Activities. And this is week one. And so the Bills are basically going to have 3 weeks of OTAs, and the Tuesday practice, they are open to the media. So the media has an opportunity to observe the practice, and there's going to be press conferences. And so for today, we heard from Sean McDermott. We heard from Josh Allen. We also heard from Taron Johnson and Chase Claypool and Marquez Valdez-Scantling. A lot of different things happening, and that's kind of going to be the expectation for the next 2 Tuesdays as well. And then, of course, you'll get mandatory minicamp and then a little bit of a break, and then you get to training camp. So that's what life is like for the Buffalo Bills over the next couple of months. But we have some new stuff to reflect on. Again, some comments from McDermott and Allen. You kind of get a sense of some themes and some vibes coming out of the practices, some injury updates, all kinds of stuff. So let's get into it. I want to start by reflecting on what Sean McDermott had to say in his press conference. And obviously this Bills team is very new. There's a lot of turnover, whether it's the coaching staff, the roster. A lot of familiar faces are no longer around, including, well, all but 2 of the team captains, right? So you have a major turnover in terms of the leadership of this team. I think 6 of the 8 team captains are gone. The only ones that are back is Josh Allen and Von Miller. And when Sean McDermott was asked about Josh Allen, I thought it was interesting that he pointed out how his leadership has grown this offseason and how intentional Josh Allen has been about that. I think as we say goodbye to a Mitch Morse and a Stephon Diggs and a Trey White and a Jordan Poyer, a Micah Hyde, all these, important leaders for this football team. The reality is this is Josh Allen's football team. And even Josh Allen commented and said, look, when guys are established starters for a long period of time, they're going to be on 3-4 different teams while still playing for the same one. And that's just where Josh Allen is. This is probably like the 3rd iteration of the Buffalo Bills under Josh Allen. The first couple of years were very much lean and building, and you didn't really love a lot of what the Bills had going, but then you started to see this nucleus start to form and be who they were, and you had a great 4-year stretch, and now it's a different nucleus. And I think that's important for us to acknowledge and recognize. And as you see a lot of things coming and going around Josh Allen's the constant. This is his football team. He's entering year 7, and he should be well prepared for this opportunity and taking the reins and being the standard setter, being the guy that everybody can look to no matter what side of the ball they play on as the key leader for this football team. Your quarterback is obviously your most influential leader. Your best players are your most influential leaders. And, well, Josh Allen just has to be both of those things for the Buffalo Bills. Sean McDermott was asked about Micah Hyde, and Sean had some kind words about, of course, Micah Hyde and the charity softball event that happened over the weekend. And Micah Hyde has said now openly that he's either going to play for the Bills this year or he's going to retire. And Sean McDermott said, look, Micah Hyde's always going to be on our radar. We'll see how it goes. And I go back and forth on this. If Micah Hyde was going to retire, you kind of felt like he would have shared that by now, but he is leaving the door open, and he's had plenty of opportunities now to comment on this. and he's leaving the door open. And it's just an interesting spot to be, knowing that he had the neck injury 2 years ago. Then you saw him battle through that at times this year where he was hitting, making tackles or hitting, and he's getting stingers left and right. And you just kind of felt uncomfortable about the whole thing. And so then Micah Hyde is a free agent, and he's either going to retire or play for the Bills. And while he seems like he has one toe in the water for playing football, he also is saying things like, yeah, sometimes I wake up and my neck hurts. And he talks about wanting to spend as much time with his family as possible, and his health is the most important thing. I don't know. Like, it's hard for me to connect all these dots and see the path to Micah Hyde playing, but also the longer this goes on, the more possible it feels. And maybe this is a situation where you have him on speed dial in case something happens. This season, maybe you have an injury or something like that at safety, and you can bring him back in a much more attractive way than you've brought back a guy like maybe a Josh Norman or an AJ Klein in recent years. So it certainly feels like, from a roster standpoint, extending Taylor Rapp, drafting Cole Bishop in the second round, signing Mike Edwards, it feels like the Bills are certainly preparing for life without Micah Hyde, but at the same time, Micah Hyde is not closing that door, it certainly feels like, at least at this point. When it comes to attendance at organized team activities, only 2 players were not present. And again, these are voluntary practices. They are not mandatory. The 2 players not in attendance, Daquan Jones, defensive tackle, and cornerback Rousseau Douglas. They are not present. I wouldn't read too much into it. You've got 89 of 91 players there. This stuff happens. Stephon Diggs wasn't at Houston Texans camp. He's a new player for them, right? So they can enjoy all that nonsense. But the 2 players not in attendance for the Bills, Daquan Jones, Rousseau Douglas. When it comes to the injury front, Sean McDermott had some good updates here. He said Brian Thompson didn't practice, and he's like a practice squad wide receiver. He did comment on Matt Milano. He said he's on schedule, and when they get closer to camp, they will really start to ramp him up. He might do some drill work, but they say that he's on schedule. And so there's been like a lot of fear out there. I'm not sure what that was rooted in, other than speculating and then that allowing your mind to go places that it shouldn't. But every indication that we continue to get from the Buffalo Bills is that Matt Milano is on schedule. And so maybe he won't participate in these OTAs. Maybe as they move along, he will. But you're kind of getting a feeling that they're taking a cautious approach, ramping him up, and then hopefully come training camp, he's full go. And Matt Milano is the elite player we've accustomed ourselves to seeing him be. One thing that is concerning, though, is Tommy Doyle didn't practice and hasn't been practicing. And Dr. Kyle Trimble, Banged Up Bills, put on social media recently a picture that he found of Tommy Doyle, who's wearing some type of foot brace that to him suggests that there's nerve damage that hasn't been healed. And Tommy Doyle, back-to-back years with an ACL tear. It's not good, right? I find myself pretty doubtful on his ability to get back and perform at a level that he needs to. So hopefully I'm wrong, but the fact that he's not participating, that brace, what Dr. Kyle Trimble has shared, it doesn't feel like there's a good story to tell there. As for Spencer Brown, I got word a couple weeks ago that this was a shoulder injury for Spencer Brown. Sean McDermott confirmed that today in his press conference. Had shoulder surgery, not participating. And he got injured against Kansas City. On the opening drive, you can go back and watch it. You'll see a play where he is in a lot of pain after kind of taking a hit to his shoulder, and he winds up finishing the game and all that. But he's had surgery so far this offseason to repair the shoulder, and he's still not back. And I'm sure that he'll ramp up and be good to go. I don't have any concerns about his availability for camp or anything like that, but we can kind of connect the dots now on what happened with Spencer Brown. I think the good news here is that it's not his back, right? He's had a history of back problems, and that's always concerning for me, for a guy that's like 6'9", 300 something pounds. You don't want back problems. And so it's good to know that he didn't have any type of back maintenance that we're aware of. Also, Mike Edwards didn't participate. New safety signing, has a shoulder injury. We knew about this from Kansas City. And Sean McDermott said He might miss the next 3 or 4 weeks, but there's not really a long-term concern here. So a lot of mental reps for Mike Edwards, who is in line to start for this team. I feel like they're probably going to start Taylor Rapp, and then it's either Cole Bishop or Mike Edwards for that other spot. And I think the silver lining here is while you don't get Mike Edwards practicing right now, that's going to create some more practice opportunity for Cole Bishop as a rookie, and that's only a good thing. Sean McDermott did have some kind words commenting about Mike Edwards and the style of player that he is and the success that he's had as a Super Bowl champion for 2 different teams, and said he likes the way he plays. And so I'm excited for Mike Edwards. I thought he had the best tape of any safety. Like if you compare Taylor Rapp's tape from 2023 versus what I studied from Mike Edwards in Kansas City, I really liked what Edwards brought to the table. And I think he should be a nice piece for this secondary, but also dealing with a shoulder injury, and that's opening up some practice opportunities, presumably for rookie Cole Bishop. All right, folks, I want to get into some comments about Keon Coleman, Chase Claypool, some fascinating stuff there, Connor McGovern, the hiring of John Perry, and more. So be sure to stick with me. Today's podcast is brought to you by Yahoo Finance. For more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. Whether you're a seasoned investor or are looking for that extra guidance, Yahoo Finance gives you all the tools and data you need in one place. They are the #1 finance destination, producing a holistic look at the financial news cycle, including breaking news, original editorial perspectives, analyst ratings, independent research, customizable charts, and so much more. You can securely link your brokerage accounts for a unified view of your wealth, including 401k and other investments. A comprehensive perspective is what sets apart great investors, and it's how Yahoo Finance ensures you have the right insight to look into your wealth in its entirety. With a community with over 90 million users each month, their real strength is helping you on your way to financial success. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com, the #1 financial destination, yahoofinance.com. That's yahoofinance.com. All right, folks, let's keep this conversation going. Sean McDermott was asked about Keon Coleman, and obviously we've learned a lot about the bubbly personality that Coleman has, and I can appreciate what Sean McDermott said here. And Sean McDermott always has interesting comments and perspectives on rookies and young players, and a lot of times he tries to ground the media a little bit, bring them back down to earth as maybe there's some hype around a certain player. And Keon Coleman said that, Sean McDermott on Keon Coleman, he said that he has a different appreciation for Keon Coleman than maybe what the public is appreciation right now. He certainly acknowledged that he has a gift for words. Sean McDermott acknowledged that he has a playful and fun personality, but he also said, look, this is a very focused young man who is here to play football and help this team. And so I've enjoyed both sides of the Keon Coleman commentary to this point, where you're seeing a big personality that has a lot of juice and energy, but whether it's Sean McDermott or even Josh Allen, which we'll get to in a minute, they're saying, look, this guy is really dialed in on football. Even Damar Hamlin had some comments today about, look, he doesn't look like a rookie to me. It seems like he's been here as long as I have. So I think it's promising, right? It's promising that this isn't just a guy with the puff jacket and meeting Andre Reed with a chicken wing necklace or cookies or whatever stuff's going on out there. This is a guy that has all that, but is dialed in on trying to become the best football player that he can be. On Connor McGovern and that transition to center, Sean McDermott really praised his mindset and said he's wired in such a way that he has mentally prepared himself for this. And I thought it was interesting that Sean McDermott also noted that they prepared Connor McGovern last year to move over to center if needed during games. And so I know that we all considered Ryan Bates as the swap, right? If Mitch Morse went down last year, okay, Ryan Bates, here you are, you're the center. Sean McDermott said, look, we were prepared if we needed to for Connor McGovern to play center last year, which certainly makes me feel even better about this transition this year, where I know that there's some rightful concerns out there. I can understand it, but also not something he's foreign to. He's done it in the NFL. He did it in college. He said he feels natural there. And the Bills have allowed these musical chairs to happen with the offensive line because they do believe that this can happen. And certainly they were prepared to do it last year if needed. So that's all encouraging to me. One of the big storylines for me coming out of Tuesday is the Chase Claypool stuff. Whether it's what Sean McDermott said about Chase Claypool, what Chase Claypool said, it all feels very good. And I know that nothing should be taken in a huge way this time of year, right? I totally understand that this is the time for optimism and hope, and everybody's in shape and looks great and dialed in and wants to be an amazing player. Like, I totally understand that. But Sean McDermott doesn't often say things like this, and I've listened to every word that Sean McDermott has said since becoming the head coach of this team. And you can tell when he says something that sounds a little bit different, especially when commenting on a player. And when he was asked about Chase Claypool, this is what he had to say. I applaud Chase for coming here to see where things go. You don't find that a lot around the NFL, where a player has been at a certain level and then is on a mission right now to reclaim what he once was in that regard. And those are my words, maybe not fair to Chase respectfully, but I would say that I am very impressed with his day-to-day approach. He's a true pro, high character, smart player, and he's been a good addition to our team. He called him very focused a couple of times, and he used the word impressed multiple times. Sean McDermott doesn't just say those things, especially about a guy that really hasn't proven anything for him on this team. And then even Chase Claypool himself talked about this opportunity and the mission that he's on and how he's aware of the doubts that are out there for him and how much bigger that is internally, for him, and how it drives him and motivates him. I'm not here to promise you that Chase Claypool is going to be a meaningful addition to this football team. But it certainly feels like, from the coaching staff's perspective and from Chase Claypool's perspective, that this is on a good path. And we'll see. I mean, Chase Claypool had 2 very good seasons to start his career. The last 2 years, absolute disaster in every imaginable way. But those first 2 years still happened. Him being a high second-round pick that was traded for a high second-round pick still happened. And so consider me a tick more curious about Chase Claypool and what he can mean for the Buffalo Bills in 2024. Again, not promising that he's going to go out and have 800 yards and 10 touchdowns. But the way that Sean McDermott talked about him, the way that he spoke about himself, feels pretty good. That's all I'll say. Regarding the hiring of John Perry, and this is something that happened over the last few weeks where the Bills hired a former NFL official. I think he was like 18 years as an official, 2 Super Bowls he officiated, has spent the last few years working for ESPN on Monday Night Football as the expert rules analysis during the games. And the Bills hired him to come on and be, I don't know, like an officiating liaison, a rules expert, something that should help the team, obviously, with the implementation of rules enforcement, challenging plays, all kinds of stuff. And Sean McDermott just simply came out and said, we're always looking to improve. And I think that might be not emphasizing enough how bad Sean McDermott has been when it comes to challenging plays. The second lowest win percentage in challenging plays of any active head coach that has challenged at least one play in his NFL career. The only one worse, Mike McDaniel for the Miami Dolphins. So yeah, it kind of stands out as kind of a problem area for your operation. It hasn't been good. It's been literally the worst in the league. So yeah, you're always looking to improve. Seems like some low-hanging fruit. I'm glad that you took a meaningful step to try to get better at something. But Sean McDermott specifically mentioned reviewing plays, being an expert in the rules, managing games as what John Perry's going to do, and commented that his responsibilities go beyond game days. Talked about his emphasis or his ability to help the team, Tuesday through Saturday, not just on Sundays. And so it sounds like John Perry's going to be in position to help this team. And Sean said that they had somebody in this role last year. We don't know who that was or what they did or what happened. But John Perry, pretty high profile in terms of his background, both as a rules analyst for ESPN, then, of course, a long tenure as an NFL referee. All right, folks, in the next segment, I want to talk about Josh Allen. He had some interesting comments about Keon Coleman. all the new weapons. Alex Brasky has some great practice reports for me to reflect on. Plus, I haven't got a chance to comment on the signing of Dee Delaney and the release of wide receiver Quintez Cephas. So that's all coming up on the other side of it. So be sure to stick with me. All right, folks, Josh Allen on his birthday, his 28th birthday. Happy birthday, QB1. Turned 28 on May 21st here. Also shares a birthday with my sister-in-law. So happy birthday, Angela, as well. So Josh Allen took to the podium and, of course, was asked about Keon Coleman. Called him a smart player, said he's been in his playbook, knows his playbook well for a rookie, is always studying, asks questions. He's young and eager. I think that's what you want to hear right now, right? That's what you want to hear. Nobody's going to come out and say, yeah, look, this is my go-to receiver. He's going to catch 100 passes and 15 touchdowns. He's not going to say that. But the fact that there is praise out there for how he's applying himself to learn and grow and his energy, all of that is great news. And you hear that from both the head coach and the starting quarterback. That's good. Now, obviously, a big part of the press conference, as it should be, was about all the new weapons around Josh Allen. Of course, Gabe Davis, Stephon Diggs, Deontay Hardy, Trent Sherfield, gone. And now you have Curtis Samuel and Keon Coleman and Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Mac Hollins and Chase Claypool and Ray Davis. There's so many new pieces around Josh Allen. And I thought Josh had some really good perspective. He said, every day is a big day. We don't have the luxury of leaning on previous reps. And he singled out Mac Hollins and how he is pushing guys and complimented the edge that Mac Hollins has brought to the room. And Brandon Beane did a great interview on the Green Light podcast with Chris Long, talking about a lot of things about the Bills, which I encourage you to go listen to. He was also very, very complimentary of Mac Hollins. And I think, I'll be honest with you, I think too many people are chalking up the Mac Hollins signing as a nothing burger. And I think you couldn't be more wrong. Again, I don't think he's going to go out and catch 50 passes and 10 touchdowns this year. But from a leadership perspective, from how he can help a guy like Keon Coleman as a big-bodied receiver, to making a few plays, to playing on fourth downs as a special teams ace, I think he's going to bring some great value to this football team. And if you're sleeping on Mac Hollins, wake up. But I thought Josh had the right perspective. Like, look, every day is a big day. Every opportunity that we have to work together and get on the same page is going to be critical. Because Josh has a lot of new pieces to get on the same page with, including a new center in Connor McGovern. And Josh was commenting on that and said he's developing that relationship. They're spending time together, sitting next to each other on the training tables before practice, getting taped and stretched. And Josh is big on your relationship with the guy off the field and how that helps you on the field. And it sounds like him and Connor are really getting aligned, and that's important, right? Like, that center quarterback relationship is a big thing. There's line calls. They have to see it the same way. I'll never forget listening to Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan was talking about the addition to Alex Mack when he was on the Atlanta Falcons. And that was, I think, Matt Ryan's MVP year. They wound up going to the Super Bowl. And he said that Alex Mack's arrival and what it meant for me with protection and all that really enabled him to focus more on the secondary. And it was such a big deal. He called it like a big deal for his career. So that center quarterback relationship is big, and that's good to know that Connor McGovern and Josh Allen are really working on that. Josh also said something that piqued my interest quite a bit, and it aligns with something that I'm speculating on, and I'm probably going to do a podcast on pretty soon, when it comes to this Buffalo Bills passing game and target distribution, and how we can obviously look at this and understand that there's no number one wide receiver. Maybe Dalton Kincaid's your go-to target, but you don't have a true number one, okay, this guy's getting 150 targets at the wide receiver position. And Josh said this, and I think this is kind of basic, but it speaks to just where this team's at offensively. He said, everybody has to do your job. And he's referring to receivers. Sometimes you're going to eat. Sometimes you're going to run the for the love of the game routes. Sometimes you're on the outside running a bus ticket and doing everything you can so that a teammate can catch a ball. And then when you have a chance to make a play down the field, you make them. Guys are responding well to that. Makes me think a lot about last year. Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis dropping passes down the field. Trent Sherfield having lazy routes when he's the clear out guy and he's not holding the safety like he's supposed to. And all of a sudden, Josh is throwing a pick because that safety doesn't believe Trent Sherfield's really running a meaningful route and he gets a buzz on the play. Some of the, Diggs kind of running some lazy routes later on in the season. This isn't an offense based around one pass catcher. It's based around sharing the ball and getting the ball to a bunch of different guys. And I think Brandon Beane talked about this recently where he was like, there could be some games where Khalil Shakir is going to go off. There could be some games where Dalton Kincaid is going to have a bunch of run or, Curtis Samuel. It's going to have a different look and feel. And I'm excited to see what that looks like because I think there could be a lot of freedom from Josh Allen in operating and just playing ball. Like, no, you don't have to go out there and worry about Steph Diggs getting his 10 targets. I think it changes everything. Where he starts his eyes, how he sees the field, the freedom to just go to the right place with the ball, make good decisions. Who should you throw the ball to? The guy that's open. I think there's a lot of appeal in how this all comes together, absent of a number one guy. But I will say this. Also, a quick shout out to Alex Brasky, Batavia Daily News, editor for Bills Digest. Follow him on X at Alex Brasky. That's AlexBrasky. Doing a great job. I feel like I've become aware of Alex in the last few years. I love the way that he covers the team. And he's at practices, and what he gives us is tremendous insight. So make sure you're following him and reading his work. I'm going to reference it a lot in the coming months, and that includes right now. But he also commented, he told us that Josh Allen spent extra time today throwing to the weapons after practice. And I don't know how often that happens or how often that doesn't happen, but I'm happy to see that there's some level of urgency about what Josh Allen's trying to do to get on the same page with all these weapons. We also heard from Marquez Valdes-Scantling today. I enjoyed listening to him. Talked about Josh Allen being very down-to-earth, a normal guy. Josh Allen had some kind words about MVS as well. So it feels like there's some good momentum there in terms of how they're forming a relationship. If I had to guess right now, the Bills wide receiver room, I think they're going to want to keep 6 receivers. And this is a huge pivot from my 53-man roster projection. I bet you that the Bills roster right now, if they had to pick it, the 6 receivers they would keep: Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel, MVS, Mac Hollins, and Chase Claypool. We'll see. There's a lot of time between now and when that decision has to be made. But I feel like that's where the momentum is. And who's going to come take it? Is Tyrell Shavers going to take it? Justin Shorter? I doubt that. Andy Isabella? Do they want more speed? KJ Hamler? Healthy competition. But I bet you right now those are the 6 they would want to make the team. A couple comments on practice from Alex Brasky, courtesy of some of his tweets or his posts, whatever we're calling it now. Alex Brasky said, on the very first play of team drills, Josh Allen connected with Keon Coleman over the middle. That's significant. On the first play of team drills, Keon Coleman was running with the first team offense. These are the types of things that we have to try to extrapolate from practice reports because beat reporters are limited in what they can share. But they can say what they said there, and that tells us that Keon Coleman, in his second practice, because they practiced on Monday, we didn't get any coverage of that because it wasn't open to the media. At least on the second practice, on the first play, Keon Coleman was running first team with Josh Allen. Alex also shared that there was a big hit delivered by Taylor Rapp on Khalil Shakir during team drills. Shakir was shaken up but regained his footing, and the Bills were not in pads. Taylor Rapp's got to knock this out, man. There's too much friendly fire. Even like watching him in games last year, how many times was he laying hits on our own players? Like, chill out, dude. We know you're physical. But more important than that is it's friggin' May, man. We don't be getting hurt. We can't be getting our guys hurt because you want to be a physical player. Like, part of being a pro is knowing that you don't do that. That bothered me during games last year. Like, it shows up, like, even at camp last year. Dude has got to chill out with that. Also, a lot of praise for Josh Allen and his throws to Dalton Kincaid. And we know Dalton Kincaid's that dude, man. This dude's going to catch 100. I bet you he's targeted 120 plus times this year. Who's the number one target in the Bills passing game? It's Dalton Kincaid. And then I think you're going to have a bunch of guys that will range from 50 to 90 targets. One of these days, I'm going to get this target distribution podcast done. But I waver so much on it. There's so much to learn about this offense, but I'm going to do it at some point. Real quick, the Bills did sign a new player. Dee Delaney was added to the mix. They cut wide receiver Quintez Cephas, who I had some appeal for. I really like the skill set that he showed in Detroit and in college at Wisconsin, but he's very redundant with this Bills wide receiver room. And they add a safety in Dee Delaney, who's 29 years old, 5'11", 200 pounds, 30.5-inch arms, was an undrafted free agent out of Miami, where he played cornerback. He was a grad transfer from the Citadel. Then he goes to Miami for his final season. He bounced around early in his NFL career between 2018 through 2019. He was with the Jaguars, Dolphins, Jets, and Washington. Then in 2021, he found a home with Tampa Bay and was there for 3 seasons and was a contributor for them for 3 seasons, 52 games, 5 starts. Almost all of that came the last 3 years with Tampa Bay. He does have 3 interceptions and 7 pass breakups in the NFL, which is significant to me because he's only been targeted a total of 66 times in coverage. So 618 coverage snaps in the NFL, targeted 66 times, and in those 66 occasions, 3 interceptions and 7 pass breakups. That's pretty cool. 14 college interceptions as well. So this guy's got some ball skills. But really where he's made a name for himself in the NFL has been special teams. Over the last 3 years for Tampa Bay, nearly 800 special team snaps. So I think he adds meaningful competition to the mix at safety. I think you have Taylor Rapp, Cole Bishop, and Mike Edwards as guys you expect to make the roster. I think safety 4 is Cam Lewis. And then you have DeMar Hamlin, Kendall Williamson, and Dee Delaney kind of competing for that safety 5 spot. And then if, one of those guys, I think the Bills will probably roster 4 safeties, but one of those guys get injured, I think you're kind of looking at that group of Delaney, Williams, and Hamlin to be the guy that would have the opportunity then to make the roster. All right, folks, so we covered a lot of ground today, a lot of speculating over these comments, diving into these comments, dissecting what we learned from OTAs so far. I certainly hope you enjoyed this. Tomorrow, we're going to have our last conversation on the 10 most important players to the future of the Bills. It's going to be just me, my ballot, why I stacked it the way that I did, what I learned through the project, maybe some mistakes that I made. I want to talk about that all on the podcast tomorrow. So don't miss it. Make sure that you're subscribed. We'd love it if you took a second to rate, review, and share the podcast. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills, and I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.